Hello, Perfect Death here, and I decided to do another Ragnarok Online Mobile video. This time this is, well, it's Comodo Legend 3rd floor again, but this time I'm going to be running the Kite role instead of the Nuka Tank role. Basically, I'm usually running tanking Nuka, the one boss who's really annoying. But we have a newer DA, Divine Avenger, who's in, and he's going to do the Nuka tank. And lately, I've been running more of the kiting tank role. So the kiting tank is a bit different. Your job isn't to try and hold the bosses in one place. Your job is to keep them away from where everybody's fighting. So you see I run up to here, and the priority is to get Pakurani. Pakurani is a real pain in the butt for everybody else. So, because Taunt as a skill will only force aggro on a boss for half a second, if you get their aggro so that they start attacking you and then you run away, they will chase you. And so long as you keep running around, they tend to just tunnel vision on you and ignore most of everything else. There are some examples of when that stops happening, but you know, in this case I managed to get Joel and Pakurani, and ideally if you can get all of them, that's great, but if you can get Pakurani, that's the important one, because she will strip everybody of buffs, she will heal the bosses. It's just nasty. You want to keep her away from them. So they're fighting Nuka on the right side in that bottom right corner. You can see Kimura, she eventually came over to attack me, and you can see right there with that meteor that just dropped. So I have the meteor bait. Now we had a couple of failed runs during this where the meteor bait wasn't targeting me. We call it the bait because if I leave the instance and come back in, and that sets me as the last person to enter, then Kimura is going to drop her meteors on me. It's this weird thing where it'll target the last person to enter, and we were having some issues getting it to work, so we had to remake the party, and then I entered, and then I exited and entered back in again. So you can see the meteors. Now those things can hurt. They can hurt a lot. Most of the time I get one shot. I'm not wearing a ton of fire resistance gear, and mostly that's because I'm using neutral element resistances. These auto attacks and most of the other skills that the bosses use are neutral element. So I am taking a bigger risk. I'm occasionally using command charge to try and outrun the meteors to try and reduce its damage as much as possible. Here we can see Nuka has marked me for his Azura Strike, and there's the meteor. It didn't hit me because my auto guard blocked it, so I'm definitely playing roulette here. But yeah, I find even with a ton of fire resistance gear, I still get one shot. But you can see right there what happened was I died, but because I have the death blow foods, it leaves me at that I'll just show it here. It leaves me at 1% at 1 HP. So boom, it hit 1.4 million damage. It's way more than my max health, but I get that 1 second of immortality after using a death blow, but it breaks the aggro. So the bosses, they just ignore me. So I come in, I taunt them, I use a honey to give myself 25% heal, and then I rebuff my heals. I think I also got healed by the priest, but you can see I just took another meteor, and that killed me. So that can happen. It's annoying when it happens, but again, priority is Pakurani, because she just did her group dispel, and you can see right away Batson and Puddle are basically dead. Puddle's not quite dead because I think he managed to get away from anything that was going to hurt him, but Batson, he just couldn't heal because that group dispel stops you from healing, and it actually steals any of your healing and gives it to the boss. So, and it's an AoE that she does, so it's horrible to get targeted by that thing. So again, my priority, keep her away. Kimura, she doesn't do too much damage to other people outside of whoever she's targeting with her meteor. So I'm kind of okay with her wandering off. Joel is a bit of a problem because he does his Spiral Pierce skill. That's neutral element, and that can one-shot people as well. So, yeah, you can see I'm weaving around and just barely dodging some of those meteors, occasionally taking pretty big hits. But yeah, in this case, we're out of our 10 resurrections for this instance. So, oh, and here I got the space-time field. If you use that when the bosses are nearby, it also freezes them. So I always try to avoid running from the bosses and instead just try to lock them down with it. But this particular run is going to be a wipe. But you can kind of get an idea that I kind of weave around. And yeah, you see there, I took a meteor hit, boom, dropped me right down to 1 HP. But at this point, we're like, yep, let's wipe. We have too many people down, no more resurrections. And then, yeah, just let the DPS kill us. Now, in this run, we are running a bit of a different kind of team composition. We have a Soul Linker, a Slayer, and a Rune Master as DPS. You know, one Rune Master does mean that the Nuka fight takes quite a while. But the Soul Linker is actually very strong at taking out Kimura because she's Ghost Element and she has a shield that blocks all damage except for Ghost Element, and Soul Linkers can do a lot of Ghost Element damage. So they can burn Kimura down very quickly. So the main challenge for us is going to be taking out Nuka fast enough, and then we're going to try and, you know, force the fight onto Kimura, take her out, because Kimura will spawn those purple circles, and those purple circles will, for some people, they can one-shot them. For me, it's at least a quarter of my health, and she gradually gets stronger, so it deals more damage. Same with her meteors, same with her auto attacks. So you can see this purple, it's going to drop me down, yeah, about a quarter. So I don't really mind when Kimura runs away because then I'm not getting hit by the meteors, but if you're having a hard time as the Kite because of Kimura's meteors, then you might want to have a Slayer be the meteor bait, because if they're in their white barrier, they can't be hurt by it. Yeah, so you can see here, Nuka actually went away from the tank because he went to Azure Strike somebody, and the tank couldn't move because Nuka will do Intimidate, and Intimidate stops you from moving. It's an immobilize skill that he does, and Freedom Vow removes that immobility. Now he also has Freedom Vow because he's a Divine Avenger, but he's pretty new at it, so I was on voice chat with him, giving him a couple of tips every now and then. But you can see he managed to, he's getting them sort of back into place, but you can see Nuka now is targeting me with the Azure Strike, so I use my command charge to just run away and see if I can then swing back around and reacquire them. But I just got the group dispel. You can kind of see these little blue dots floating around me, and that prevents me from doing any healing. So, and then I took a meteor. But I'm there back. I used one of the full heal items there just to make sure I had enough health. Usually I just try to do only honeys, but you see Nuka's almost dead, I think he is, yeah, he's hunting the Soul Linker, and just as he gets to the Soul Linker, the Slayer shoots him, because I think he hit a trap that stopped him from moving. That Joel spawned. So now I've been able to pull Joel and Pakarani away, so that's a really good transition. Sometimes it's very hard to separate Komora from Pakarani. They have the same attack range and movement speed. So while you're kiting, they tend to just stand right on top of each other, and it's really hard to pull them apart. And in that case, you can actually see right here, Komora's health is just dropping. Normally, she's immune to damage half the time. Yeah, you can see I got frozen, but if it's just Pakarani hitting me, it's not a big deal. But yeah, you can see, because the Soul Linker can hit her even when she's hiding at her barrier, she's just getting absolutely melted. Though the Soul Linker died. So that's why the DPS slowed down for a little bit. So now it's left to Joel, and at this point the kiting just becomes a breeze. I just kind of, pace around and just, I probably could just stand there and just taunt spam her, but this case you just kind of pace around and wait, and eventually they will kill Joel. I think because the Komora fight ended so fast, I think the Slayer who got the last hit on Nuka, he's still disarmed. Yeah, so he mentions here he's still disarmed, so he can't do any DPS, so he did no DPS to Komora. And Joel, his penalty is he's just going to drop somebody's health by half. The Komora penalty, you can see on our Rune Master, it just sets his SP. It's constantly draining his SP, so he's having a hard time doing any DPS as well. But yeah, the kiting, you get into a pretty good rhythm of it. Just keep moving around, and I've heard some skills like priests using heal in the area will distract and pull away aggro, but I don't know, I've yet to actually see that happen regularly myself. I think what tends to happen is somebody burns a death blow by taking too much damage, and then that means that I lose aggro. Aside from that, I hardly ever lose aggro when I'm kiting. Yeah, here I'm actually going to switch to my Sins of Living just so I have the extra skill reduction so I can spam taunt more. And that way make sure that she doesn't get a group dispel off on us. Yeah, and then our priest is trying to land the cure barriers, but the combo of Slayer and Soul Linker doing damage just should melt Pakarani. So this comp, hard Nuka fight, easy Komora fight, and easy Pakarani fight. A lot of the times I've run with 2 Slayers, 1 Rune Master, and in that case you tend to have just a hard Nuka fight and a slow Komora fight. But in that case, I think I bring up the stats here just to check, because yeah, because the Soul Linker didn't get any of the debuffs, he got lots of DPS there. So in terms of gear, I think, where did I might just go over that. So I do run, when I'm doing the kite, more tanky gear rather than having the cast delay reduction stuff. There's a couple of other alternatives if you don't want to use the giant wing shield or the Watcher's armor. You have like the Title armor and the Tide Rider those are examples of armor that have very high, fire element resistances, neutral element resistances, all bundled together into these two pieces of armor, and that's going to help keep people alive against both the meteors and the neutral damage that's coming in. Because the bosses are all demi-human, the Goblin Leader Mask is very useful for tanking that as well. My headgear is just something I threw on. This is more for comboing with my weapon to give me defense ignore, which when you're tanking, you don't really need the defense ignore at all. So you could switch out quite a bit of that for just more tanky gear overall. I did put on this tail for the magic attack reduction, so that hopefully, I was seeing if that was going to let me survive a little more, but not always. And then yeah, my accessories and my foot gear. So a lot of my stuff here is actually for boosting my heal, my self-heal, as that's kind of my main tanking way. Is I got a mix of damage reduction and self-heal. And you could just go heavier on damage reduction, just take less damage. So there's some variety that you can do here, but the main thing is the Fate Wheel and the Sins of a Living are very useful for spamming taunt, especially if you're doing a Nuka Tank. But if you're not a Nuka Tank, then you don't really need the cast delay reduction. You can change your back. You don't need that as an offhand, and you can just go more tanky. It does make it a little more risky to taunt spam Pakurani at the end of the fight, but yeah, you don't really need the skill delay gear for being a kite. You need more self-heal and survivability. So that'll be it for this video. Take care.